Don't ask?
Let's get on with it.
A little weird.
Ow, Frost. It's only a flesh wound.
Welcome back to the Medieval Challenge. As per the poll results, it seems most of you hate my well-being, so I'll be returning to StarCraft 2 to do the eco-friendly challenge. The laws are simple. Thou shalt only use medieval units, heroes, items, and structures. Thou may use an item or ability if its nature can be explained as mundane. For example, Sylvanas' charm is clearly her enormous wit, drawing her foes to her side. The run will be done on normal difficulty, because medieval weaponry is indeed quite mundane. Also, I'm pretty new to the game, so bear with me. Rise of the Naga requires me to pursue the fugitive Illidan. I get access to Maiev, one of the Watchers who guarded him in the last game. She uses a weird blade thing, throws knives, and uses poison. Sounds pretty medieval to me. Anywho, I also get access to archers and cavalry. Good thing too, as Illidan has recruited several pirates for his nefarious schemes, using Maiev to tank and poison, and my troops to back her up. I push through the pirates, ending the mission. Likeable lore, the original glaive was actually a polearm. More specifically, it was a type of halberd, a hafted weapon meant to strike foes. It's speculated that the glaive originated in Wales, though during the 15th and 16th centuries the term was applied to many hafted weapons. The term glaive started to be used for throwing weapons in the film Krull, where it was the thrown blade that functioned like a boomerang. The Broken Isles requires me to destroy Illidan's pirate base. To do this, I need to build a fleet of ships to sail through the archipelago. I get access to galleys and frigates. Galleys carry and frigates harry. Quite medieval. After building up a force of archers, heavy and light cavalry, druids, and ballistas, I storm the enemy bases. Ballistas take out towers, Maiev poisons, and my army deals with the rest. After losing most of my troops in the final fight, I catch up to Illidan, and the mission ends. Likeable lore. The term frigate first gained use in the 15th century, and was used to describe galleass ships with oars, sails, and light weaponry. Galleass means as fast as a galley and as strong as a galleon. Anywho, it would later be used by the English in the 17th century for ships that were small, long, lightly armored, and well-staffed. The Tomb of Sargeras requires me to explore the tomb of a dead titan to find Illidan. Along the way, I read the ramblings of an alleged sorcerer named Gul'dan. Something demons bad. Anywho, I only have Maiev, archers, and cavalry to start. As it's permanently night here, I use the expert tactic of hiding and poisoning my foes to limit early losses. Maiev is supposed to use Blink to teleport to certain places, but magic isn't real, so I limit myself to walking and I have to use Blink. Well, I suppose Maev's not really teleporting. I think she can just jump good. Hopefully she won't need to jump good from here on out. Sorry, felt the need to pause for a sec. Weird. Anywho, after breaking some rocks, I also get access to druids and light cavalry, allowing me to fight my way to Illidan, who's committing completely mundane, non-magical acts. For some reason, which is absolutely unrelated to whatever Illidan's doing, the tomb starts to collapse. Evidently, Maev's troops can't jump good, so they all die while Maiev escapes. Wrath of the Betrayer requires me to escort the slowest runner in the world to a ship while I hold my base against Illidan's assault. I need to be extra careful as I can't reinforce the runner with regular forces. After cutting down a few extra trees, I build up a force of archers, heavy and light cavalry, druids, and ballista to defend my base, with moonwells to give them water. Using Maiev to tank, the escort to spank, I finally get to the ship and there's a part 2! After hiring several ships, I sail past several enemy birds and pirates. After blasting through several enemy gates and defenders, I sail the runner to the exit, and the mission ends. Likeable lore. Communication during the Middle Ages was done largely through letters delivered by messengers. Traveling in Western Europe was more dangerous without the Roman Empire, and delivery was often costly. That being said, for towns, universities, and monasteries, couriers did have protection under royal decree. An ideal messenger needed to be fit to know multiple languages. Obviously, in wartime, they couldn't travel openly, and instead dressed up as pilgrims and hid messages in their clothes. They also used horses, donkeys, camels, or oxen to help. Balancing the scales requires me to reach Maev's base with Tyranda's forces. Furion's actually useful for once as he brings down several trees to make a path, so I reward him with more time out because magic isn't real. I get access to Tyranda, archers, heavy cavalry, and druids, as well as Maev's base. Maev doesn't have any gold, and she's under heavy attack, so I need to be quick-end and rely on gold coins scattered throughout the ruins. While I initially try to fight the pirates one-on-one, as the young people say, they're quite jacked, so I opt for the expert tactic of running away from my problems. Unfortunately, with my forces battered and a lack of gold, I'm unable to take the nearby expansion immediately, so I use Maev and Tyranda to scour the map for reinforcements, including several archers, cavalry, druids, and these mundane decorative statues. Eventually, I take the expansion and build up a proper force. With my forces ready, I launch a final assault on Illidan's base, defeating him and the pirates, ending the mission. Shards of the Alliance requires me to escort the pointy Prince Kael'thas to a bridge. I get access to Maev, Tyranda, and some druids. To reinforce the caravan, I find several hidden caches of gold and hire numerous mercenaries, including several assassins. Odd choice for an escort mission, but they'll do. Anywho, using Maev to tank and Tyranda to support, I escort the caravan to the bridge. Tyranda pulls a Gandalf and gets swept away, ending the mission. Likeable lore. The Hashashins were an order of assassins led by Hassan al-Sabah, a mathematician and scholar. Based in a mountain fortress known as Alamut, al-Sabah commanded a force of devoted fighters who engaged in espionage and assassination. They used daggers and often committed public attacks before slipping away unnoticed. They excelled at psychological warfare and often threatened subjects, such as the Ayyubid leader Saladin, to gain their cooperation. They were eventually wiped out by the Mongol invasions in 1256. Furion finally shows up and says something about an earthquake, as well as Illidan's completely unrelated mundane non-magical actions regarding this relic. To secure Furion's completely unnecessary cooperation, Maev lies about Tyranda's death. With my allied forces, I need to defeat the 4 summoners before the earthquake causes too much damage. While Kael holds off the cultists to the south, I build up a force of archers, heavy and light cavalry, druids, and ballista. I also rescue a paladin to aid in my assault. While I suffer heavy losses pushing into the pirates' stronghold, my ballistas take out towers while Maev poisons the guards. While the mission says I need to use magic to beat the summoners, it allows me to use Maev's knives and poison, which are clearly mundane and non-magical in every way. After capturing Illidan, Kael reveals that Tyranda is still alive and Furion imprisons Maev as punishment. He and Illidan put aside their differences to go save her. The Brothers Stormrage is about the Brothers Stormrage. I need to defend Furion's base while sending Illidan and his pirates to save Tyranda. The pirates have access to several spearmen, pet lizards, and turtles. To defend the Forest Tribe base, I build up moonwells, archers, light and heavy cavalry, druids, and ballista. After defeating several barbarian tribes, I fight my way through cultist lines. Turtles take out towers, spearmen bring down enemy birds, and through the expert tactic of feigned retreats, I lure the enemy out of their position, securing victory. Likeable lore. The most famous pirates in medieval times are probably the Vikings, which were sea raiders from Scandinavia, modern-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. They raided between the 8th and 11th centuries, hitting monasteries, villages, and cities for loot and slaves. They also traded and explored, and conducted business as far east as Baghdad, and reached as far west as Newfoundland. The reasons for raiding aren't entirely clear. Some sources claim it was retaliation for forced conversions and persecution by Christians, while others believed it was to escape the harsh environment of Scandinavia. Whatever the truth, the Viking raids largely came to an end once their kingdoms converted to Christianity. Misconceptions requires me to repair 2 observatories. What's that? This isn't the start of the mission. I actually start off with just 5 units to break through an army of enemies? Ridiculous. Anywho, I get access to footmen, archers, knights, and mortars. I also get access to spellbreakers, clearly a force of inquisitors to hunt down heretics. Sounds pretty medieval to me. After gathering my army, I launch an assault on the nearby cultist base and clear it out. After recovering more gold, I secure the 2nd observatory, and the mission ends. Likeable lore. Heretics were religious groups whose practices did not adhere to standard doctrine. Whether a branch was considered heretical was determined by the church. Given the whole forgiveness aspect of Christianity, heretics often had the chance of rejoining the main faith. Persecutions occurred when they refused. One such group were the Cathars in the mid-12th century. They practice vegetarianism, egalitarianism, chastity, and believe that true redemption came from the teachings of Christ rather than his reported resurrection. I would be wiped out during the Albigensian Crusade during the early 13th century. A Dark Covenant requires me to defeat the cultist forces in the area while my forces are incredibly under strength. Initially, I only have access to footmen, archers, and inquisitors. My outlying bases are wiped out, so I save as many troops as I can. Eventually, Illidan's pirates show up and offer reinforcements. I get access to pirate spearmen and Lady Vash, an expert archer with arrows that are quite cold. With my combined forces, I storm the southern outposts and cut a path to the main cultist base. After wiping out my foes, the Alliance commander, who's a massive racist by the way, arrests Kael'thas for working with pirates. Now I asked you nicely the first time, boy. I didn't come here to talk with you. Now lay down your weapons. I guess you wouldn't be Alliance if you weren't a complete pain in the ass. The Dungeons of Dalaran requires me to free my pointy-eared brethren. Kael'thas purportedly uses magic, so he's in timeout. This means I need to use Lady Vash to rescue my army. I need to save 4 lieutenants and defeat the jailer to escape. To this end, I scour the prisons to find any and all prisoners while purging any magicians from my ranks. By using Lady Vash to tank and my inquisitors to spank, I fight my way through the prison. By employing feigned retreats, I dismantle the enemy guards, defeat the jailer, and end the mission. The crossing is a secret level. I need to defend this completely mundane, non-magical portal while Kael'thas' people escape through it. To this end, I need to fortify the area with lines of towers. While I try to stick to the boulder towers in Lady Vash, the enemy sends air units early on, forcing me to use these obviously magical towers to repel them. Eventually, I buy enough time, and the mission ends. Likeable lore, castle towers were designed to give a good view of the surrounding area, ensuring any invading army could be spotted. Towers initially had square shapes, though when invaders started collapsing their corners through tunneling, round towers were employed instead. To fire on the enemy, defenders had machicolations, or holes, built into the castle walls. Through these, they could shoot arrows, throw stones, and even throw poop at the enemy. After journeying to the land of Draenor through completely mundane, non-magical methods, Kael'thas and Lady Vash discover that Illidan's been captured by Maev's forces. I need to save Illidan by escorting his cage back to my camp. I only have access to Lady Vash again, though I can hire some local mercenaries too. These include fanatics who can set themselves on fire and war dogs. To rescue Illidan, I focus down Maev and steal the guard early while using Vash to support my army and hold off the Forest Tribe warriors. Towards the end, the enemy forces are built up into an unstoppable wave, but I buy enough time and the mission ends. Gates of the Abyss requires me to destroy several mundane, non-magical gates used by the Lord of Outland, Magtheridon. To this end, I need to hold off the enemy while Illidan seals each gate. I get access to both pointy people and pirates. Using a mix of inquisitors, pirate spearmen, turtles, Illidan, and Lady Vash, I secure assistance from the local tribe led by Akama. Together we push to each gate. To repel the enemy counterattacks, I use the expert tactic of spamming static defense, allowing my army to hold off Magtheridon's forces and seal the gates, ending the mission. Lord of Outland requires me to defeat Magtheridon and his generals. To this end, I need to fight my way through the enemy fortress. Lady Vash's pirates take on the right flank, while Illidan, the pointy people, and Akama's tribe take on the left and center. Akama's tribe is good at sneaking, allowing me to infiltrate the castle and disable the various defenses. After liberating several enemy catapults, I push through each section of the castle. By employing pincer attacks with the pointy people and pirates, I fight my way to each champion and defeat them. Magtheridon nearly beats my army, but with the expert tactic of ignoring my problems, I focus him down, ending the mission. Likeable lore, the siege of Antioch was partially won through infiltration. While the Crusaders had trouble seizing the city from the Seljuks, Bohemond of Taranto contacted a Christian guard named Feruz who commanded the Gate of the Two Sisters. Upon opening it, the European army stormed the city and massacred the non-Christian inhabitants. While a relief force under Kerboga of Mosul attempted to retake the city, the Europeans charged Turkish lines, routing the enemy. King Arthas requires me to purge Lordaeron of the remaining humans. To this end, I need to defend 3 exits to the region and prevent the villagers from escaping. Arthas holds the southwest, the drug-induced hallucination of Kel'Thuzad holds the northeast, and Sylvanas holds the southeast. I guess she didn't actually die back in Reign of Chaos. Arthas probably just knocked her out or something. Anywho, Arthas gets access to abominations, but both Sylvanas and Kel'Thuzad only have access to magic-wielding necromancers and banshees, so it's cannibals only for them. I have to push with Arthas in a force of abominations first, but I can only access 3 of the villages with him. Next I push with Sylvanas, but progress is much slower. She can make bone knights from defeated enemies, clearly just her charm and wit turning enemy knights to our side. To counter the paladin reinforcements, I use the expert tactic of running away from my problems, then returning to destroy the villages. Kel'Thuzad's side is the hardest, as I have no heroes to support my cannibals. However, I realize that I only need to destroy the farms at each village, so using the expert tactic of ignoring my problems, I rush my cannibals in to destroy each farm. As a final objective, I send my armies to attack the central camp from all sides. With the expert tactic of ignoring my problems, I destroy all 3 altars, and the mission ends. The flight from Lordaeron is about a flight from Lordaeron. I need to get Arthas out of the city before his rebelling cultists can get him. He gets progressively weaker over the course of the campaign, forcing me to rely on minions or other heroes to keep him alive. Using the expert tactic of running away from my problems, I managed to recruit several cultists who are loyal, including cannibals, abominations, net fighters, and catapults. After fighting my way to the exit, the mission ends. The Dark Lady requires me to defeat the demon Veramathras. I get access to Sylvanas, cannibals, and catapults. On a mission where my enemy gets abominations, necromancers, and a powerful demon lord. Oh boy. I like to mass catapults for damage while using Sylvanas to recruit more bone knights to tank. Despite heavy attacks by Veramathras and his lackeys, my catapult army easily repels him. To add anti-air, I hire several axe throwers to bring down enemy birds. Eventually, I launch an assault on the demon's base, burying his stronghold in a tide of bodies. In return for his loyalty, Sylvanas spares Veramathras' life. Return to Northrend requires me to bring Arthas to the base of an ice glacier. I get access to Anubarak, yet another Australian spider. He can impale and implant bugs into people. Sounds pretty medieval to me. Anywho, after building a fleet of frigates, I take the nearby Pointy base. There are 2 enemy strongholds nearby, Pirate and Pointy. After building a force of abominations, net fighters, and catapults, I wipe them out. Anubarak stuns, Arthas shuns, and my army makes me use up puns. Likeable lore. Vlad Dracula was a 15th century prince of Wallachia, now modern-day Romania, who was notorious for impaling his enemies. At the time, Wallachia was an Ottoman vassal, and Dracula and his brothers were sent to the Sultan's court to assure him of the kingdom's loyalty. Following his father's death, Dracula repeatedly attempted to seize power from rival claimants such as his brother, who was supported by the Ottoman Sultan. True to his nickname, the Impaler, Vlad would notably leave thousands of impaled victims as a deterrent to the Ottomans when he retreated from battle in 1462. Dreadlord's fall requires me to assault Deathrok and Garithos' stronghold. By infiltrating the city, I launch a sneak attack on either the Alliance or cultists. I choose the Alliance because I don't like Garithos. By destroying most of his production, I effectively disable him as a threat. The hard part is the counterattack the enemy launches right after, but with a mix of abominations, night fighters, Sylvanas, and Veramathras, I just barely hold on. Now, you may say, Veramathras is pretty magical. Well, he's also a demon, which is pretty medieval for this challenge. Also, it's my run, I'll do as I please. Anywho, after rebuilding, I finish off Garithos' base and storm Deathrok's defenses. Garithos joins my side, ending the mission. Likeable lore, demons in the Middle Ages were seen as malevolent spirits who tempted and tormented people. While the Bible itself doesn't delve much into demons, the image of men possessed by hordes of them persisted in the minds of villagers. Superstitions arose of invisible and horned creatures tempting people to do wrong. Back then, people didn't so much make deals with the devil, rather that wicked would be taken by him to hell. A new power in Lordaeron requires me to destroy the stronghold of the final demon Balthazar. I get access to Sylvanas' cultists and Garithos' knights. Since Garithos only really has knights, footmen, and mortars for fighting, I mostly use them as my enemy's punching bag. My main fighting force consists of Sylvanas, Varamathras, Abominations, Netfighters, and Catapults. Using Garithos' army as a decoy, I send Sylvanas' force to wipe out Balthazar's stronghold. Varamathras kills Balthazar and Garithos, and Sylvanas declares her own faction, the Forsaken. His mission is broken up into 3 parts. Into the Shadowweb Caverns requires me to fight through Muradin's former soldiers. I get access to Arthas and Ubarak, cannibals, netfighters, and a catapult. Using the catapult to blow up these convenient explosives, I fight my way to Baelgun and defeat him, ending the mission. The Forgotten Ones is about the Forgotten Ones. Who are the Forgotten Ones? I forget. As Arthas continues through the caverns, I run into some weird squid people, clearly just products of Arthas' drug-addled mind. Anywho, I need to fight through both Australian spiders and squid hallucinations. To this end, I use Arthas and Ubarak to tank while my netfighters spank. Eventually, I face off against a kraken and defeat it, ending the mission. Likeable lore, the kraken is a giant squid or octopus from Scandinavian mythology. It was both aggressive and strong enough to sink entire ships. The likeliest cause of the myth was the bodies of giant squids washing up ashore. These creatures were often interpreted as signs from God or the devil, and gained the terms sea angels, sea devils, or sea monks. Ascent to the Upper Kingdom is about the ascent to the Upper Kingdom. After getting separated from Ubarak, I need to get Arthas out of the caverns before they collapse. To this end, I use the expert tactic of running away from my problems to reunite with my forces. After beating up more squids, the mission ends. A Symphony of Frost and Flame requires me to control 4 obelisks to gain entrance into the Lich King's castle. Illidan and his army are already entrenched around 2 of them, and he goes after the remaining 2 fairly quickly. I also have to contend with Kael'thas' pointy army and Lady Vash's knights, who periodically attack my base. While I initially alternate between seizing and fortifying the obelisks as well as repelling Illidan, the counterattacks become too numerous for my army. So I use the expert tactic of wiping out my enemies and raise both Lady Vash and Kael'thas' bases. With Illidan's armies depleted, I easily take the final 2 obelisks, and the mission ends. It's over, Arthas! I have the high ground. Faithless coward. You are not prepared. Oh shit, he was prepared! To Tame A Land is the start of the Barbarian campaign. These next 3 missions are closer to an RPG than an RTS, meaning I control a group of heroes instead of an army. I get access to Rexxar, an outcast with a penchant for throwing porcupines and sicking bears on his enemies. Perfectly medieval for this challenge. I also get access to Rokan, who throws swords at people. I need to help War Chief Thrall to stabilize the new nation of Durotar. To this end, I help several citizens with various errands. These include getting weed, hunting some birds, wiping out warlocks, and helping this very honorable gentleman with brewing his beer. Chen Stormstout can get opponents drunk and set them on fire. Very medieval to me. Eventually, we discover Alliance forces have been attacking barbarian outposts. After wiping out an Alliance settlement, I warn Vol'jin's tribe. It's at this point that the heroes get high and hallucinate themselves fighting as birds to sink ships. After decimating the Alliance fleet, I head back and uncover an assassination attempt on Thrall, ending the mission. Likeable lore. Berserkers were reportedly Viking warriors who fought with incredible ferocity and little fear. It's speculated that they used drugs to remove their inhibitions and served as mercenaries before being outlawed in the 11th century. It's difficult to know how true accounts about berserkers are, as most records come from Christian sources after their outlawing. They supposedly wore the skins of bears and wolves, though legends claim they literally became said creatures in battle. Old Hatreds requires me to consult with Jaina about the Alliance raids on Durotar and prepare Thrall's forces for war. I start off with Samuro, another very honorable swordsman who's good at hiding. After setting off several explosives in the nearby Alliance camp, Rexar meets with Jaina, who denies involvement in the conflict and asks to speak with Alliance forces. Unfortunately, the camp is attacked by pirates, forcing the gang to fight through their defenses. After returning to Jaina's base in Theramore, her father Dalen arrives and reveals himself as the leader of the Alliance invaders. He attempts to capture the heroes, but using the expert tactic of running away from my problems, I get the city gates open and escape. After rescuing the son of Cairn and dueling a giant warlord, I secure cooperation with the Bull Warriors and Tall People. After launching a counterattack against Dalen, I decimate his army. A Blaze of Glory is thankfully far shorter than the last two missions. I need to disable Dalen's fleet and storm Theramore to eliminate him. To this end, I get access to a fleet of warships, which are surprisingly easy to rebuild, allowing me to break through the blockade. To storm Theramore, I use my heroes to clear each lane of towers and production structures, allowing my allies to overwhelm Dalen. Peace is re-established, and the mission ends. Likeable lore. The Battle of Lepanto was a battle between the Holy League and the Ottoman Empire to check the Turkish expansion in the Mediterranean. Despite both sides suffering heavy casualties, League victories in the center and left led to the Ottomans retreating. It is notably the last great engagement between oar-propelled vessels and the first major victory over the Ottoman fleet. So can you? Nay. Nay, you cannot. Night and Blood Elves, as well as Undead and Orcs, aren't real. Even entertaining this delusion, there are still problems. Tomb of Sargeras requires me to use Maev's blink ability to escape at the end. Misconceptions requires me to use Kael'thas and my Elven Priest to fight through the first segment of the mission. The Crossing forces me to use several magical towers to defeat the enemy. 6 of the 8 Undead missions require me to use a Nubarak to help Arthas encrypt fiends for anti-air. The Tame A Land forces me to use Zeppelins and magic birds, and Old Hatreds forces me to use a magic gate to escape Theramore. But how many missions can be done with medieval units alone? 7 out of 8 Sentinel missions can be done with medieval units only. 5 out of 7 Blood Elf missions can be done with medieval units only. If I allow Crypt Fiends in an Uberak, then all 8 of the Undead missions can be done with medieval-ish units. Only 1 out of 3 Barbarian missions can be done with medieval units alone, though keep in mind that these missions have multiple parts that can be done with medieval units. I'm just too lazy to separate them. In total, 21 out of 26 missions can be done with medieval units alone. 81%. Compared to Reign of Chaos's 88%, this is slightly worse. The biggest issue is, of course, having more missions that force me to use spells and magical units. But it is what it is. Remember, patty cake, baker's man. Sign up for Patreon as fast as you can. Updates and shoutouts and early release. Shoutouts to such fine supporters as these: Gladys Marino, Time, Happy Acrid, Scott Replinger, and Jen Tuong, hope I said that right, for supporting the channel. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and use extremely mundane armies to achieve completely non-magical objectives.
This criminal will be brought to justice very soon.
It ain't over till it's over, you son of a bitch. Adjutant, are my troops ready yet?
Insufficient Vespine gas.
I knew I should have stayed in bed this morning.